So, good morning. This is Friday, March 11th, and we have to take a break at 10 o'clock. So hopefully we can dispose of this bill in a timely manner. Last night I had a conversation with the commissioner and various emails between Ben and the Defender General, and hopefully we reach some accommodation. But if not, we'll continue to try to discuss this. So, Ben, if you want to walk us through the latest, already
Sure.
draft 4.1.
Great. So this is in the Senator Series as Ben Obrowski from the Office of Legislative Counsel. They were looking at draft 4.1 of the strike law amendment to S-127. The difference between version 3.1 and this one is reflected on lines 17 through 21 on page 1, and then going on to page 2, line 1. But essentially what this does is, starting on line 17, this keeps the language of the current statute for the de novo review. So the appeal shall still be based on a de novo review of the record. The appellant may offer testimony in its discretion for good cause shown. The court may accept additional evidence to supplement the record. That's the current statute. And this version of the amendment keeps that language. The addition that is new is starting on line 19 on page 2, line 1, that states, if additional evidence is accepted by the court, the department, through the Office of the Vermont Attorney General, shall have the opportunity to present rebuttal evidence, including testimony, for the court's consideration. So this, I believe, captures what was discussed yesterday in testimony, where there's still this de novo standard that can be supplemented by evidence if the court deems it appropriate for good cause shown. And then if that's shown, or if that's accepted, the department will have an opportunity to rebut it. And so it provides a development of the record if the court deems it appropriate, rather than just a completely new review. Scrolling down farther onto page 2, you will.
And this is where you're going, I think. The subject matter jurisdiction, I'm confused about. Or not jurisdiction.
Well, this is to accommodate a situation, I think, that was brought up by both the Defender General but primarily the department, where oftentimes furloughees will submit an appeal, but it can't be heard. Oftentimes there may not be counsel to advise them. And so it would be for, the period here is for, under current law, is the interruption or revocation period is for 90 days or longer. If it didn't meet that standard, then the court wouldn't necessarily have subject matter jurisdiction. And I think that this is also aimed to help with the paperwork issue that was discussed. So it's basically give the department an opportunity to object without having to submit the full record. There's a certification of subject matter jurisdiction saying that the court can hear this, and then the department has that ability to object if, for whatever reason, the certification was incorrect.
Okay, maybe this is a term of art that I'm not familiar with. Subject matter jurisdiction. So you're saying it could be longer than 90 days. How is that subject matter?
Well, so it's the topic that the court can hear.
Yeah.
And so often that is a common defense that is often levied in court cases, that the court doesn't even have subject matter jurisdiction to hear the case. They can't hear the topic that is being brought up. And this is language to ensure a process if, for whatever reason, the court did not have the ability to hear the case because it was outside of the time period.
Because it seems like what we're doing is we're requiring in every case that they include a certificate that they have jurisdiction instead of, I thought the way it would be is that you presume jurisdiction and then someone can fight it if they are challenging what the court is doing. But
Yeah, and I'm not as familiar with this specific process and how
Yeah.
it plays out in the appeal process, so that could be a better question for the Defender General of the department. But this language has maintained throughout all the versions of the bill, and it's just to ensure that the parties don't have to submit the full record before this issue is resolved. I think it's just sort of a practical burden to assist with it. But the Defender General of the department may have a little bit more insight as to the process itself. And if there are no more questions on this part, on page 2, line 7, the abuse of discretion standard is back. So now the appellant shall have the burden of proving by preponderance of the evidence that the department abused its discretion in imposing a further revocation or interruption for 180 days or longer, pursuant to subsection D of the section. So this goes back to what the statute currently is, with the exception of the change from 90 to 180 days. Scrolling down into subdivision 2, the change in this section is the, I guess, reprise of the length of interruption or revocation not being consideration in the abuse of discretion determination, and that language is contained on lines 13 through 15. This is what was initially in the bill as first amended. It was part of the discussions with the department about going back to the de novo plus standard and incorporating the abuse of discretion. That this would be outside of what the inquiry of the current court would be.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I just wanted to flag that last sentence. I wasn't convinced that we should have that. When we were hearing the testimony, it sounded as though there were cases, the Defender General brought up those cases, and it sounded like the court had found that there was abuse of discretion, partially because of the length of the interruption. So I don't know why we would specify that a court can't look at that.
Commissioner Dummel may have a response.
Okay.
Commissioner?
Hey, good morning, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. This is Nick Demmel, Commissioner of the Vermont Department of Corrections. I think the issue around this language came up. I think the senator's right to point out during the testimony the other day, it was clear that the committee had wanted courts to be able to consider the length of the revocation. So in the last version, this language was struck out. Judge Zone yesterday brought up a concern that if it's struck out, that essentially eliminates it also. And so I think the way to resolve this issue would be on line 14 here. Instead of saying shall not, if we could change that to a may, that would allow the court to consider the length of interruption as an abuse of discretion if it so chose. So I think shall not could change to may, and that would capture both the concerns of the Defender General, but also the concerns of the testimony that we heard, that we provided the other day, if that helps.
Oh my goodness. You know, when the majority leader hands food to the senator, wow.
She's gonna get used to this special
What it
treat.
is, did she buy it for you or did you pay her?
No, she did.
Oh, we should put it on order.
Treat.
And church is right.
Did that answer, I'm sorry for the interruption.
That sounded like a good solution to me.
Yeah, and my apologies if I misunderstood that in the back and forth. You know, that it's a simple change to make, to may, so shall not.
Then if I could just ask one more question about the subject matter jurisdiction. So it includes a certification that the course has subject matter jurisdiction. Who is certifying?
The appellant, so it would be the furlough.
How can the furloughee certify that a court has jurisdiction?
Well, it would just be basically an attestation of some form, and, you know, typically there would be either a sworn statement or maybe a form that is created by the court system to just say that it meets the criteria of the, you know, 180-day interruption or a revocation. It would be something like that. And it just says, I think it's another stopgap to help ensure that the furloughee understands what the criteria is. But how that actually would play out, I think, is sort of up to the court system and the department and the defender general as far as how it would actually work in reality. But typically, when you certify something, there would be some attestation or sworn statement saying that it would have subject matter jurisdiction.
I'll tell you how it's going to play out. Within 10 days of this becoming law, jailhouse lawyers will have a blueprint document that's standard and rubber stamped in every single one of these things that gets filed. That I have a sentence that says, this is certified that the court has subject matter jurisdiction. I've scratched my head through this wondering why we need to add this, because anybody can always challenge whether a court has subject matter jurisdiction. And to me, it just looked like a hurdle being thrown in front of anybody who wanted to file. It was kind of unnecessary, but the bottom line is, if we pass it, that's exactly what's going to happen. There's going to be a blueprint document and everyone rubber stamps, and that's.
Yeah.
So can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So does it cover the people whom we were hearing about who have no eligibility to file for this relief that were doing so by the masses previously?
Well, the ones that don't qualify, yeah, I mean, this would help to, I think, to weed them out, so to speak.
Is there any penalty if you file it and it's false?
That would be.
Put them in jail.
So, Senators, I think I might be able to clarify on this point. I think Senator Benning's analysis is accurate that jailhouse lawyers probably will come up with a blanket form that everybody can use. The piece that's missing, though, is the way the system works right now. Somebody files an appeal for furlough interruption, and the department is required then, without any opportunity to stop the system from moving forward, to compile the entire record and send it to the court. This is the onerous administrative burden that we are trying to avoid. And so by building in a certification and the opportunity for the department to appeal within 14 days, it would enable us to say, no, they don't actually meet their certification. The court cannot hear this case because it's an interruption for less than 90 days, or if we change the law, 180 days, or for some other reason. And so it gives us that opportunity to say, stop the process until we can determine whether or not they actually do meet the criteria under Rule 74. And what we're seeing is there are several cases where the individuals don't meet the criteria, file their appeal, and the department is hand is forced at that point. And that's where we have to carry on this administrative burden, and it's for naught, because when we all get to court, then the case is thrown out. So that's the additional piece that was missing there.
I think Matt wants to comment.
That makes
Did you
sense.
want to comment first, Senator Booth?
I was just gonna say, that made sense. So in other words, this is just setting up a means by which the department can appeal and stop it from moving forward if it doesn't meet the basic.
Yeah, it's a 150-day interrupt, then it wouldn't be eligible, but they still might file. This would help the department avoid all the paperwork, as I understand it. Matt,
That's correct, Senator. Thank you.
Did you want to comment?
Yes, I did. This is getting at the spirit of what the department wants, but I think it's a kind of awkward way of dealing with it. And what I think really should happen here is that the inmates, as Senator Benning pointed out, are going to check a box in a form, and they don't know what that means. Of course, they're unrepresented at when they file the appeal, because it's the inmates who file the appeal. What I had conceived of is that if the department gets an appeal that is on an interrupt that's less than 90 days, they are the ones who would file the objection to subject matter jurisdiction, one-page form, and request that it be dismissed based on the fact that that it's less than 180 days. In the meantime, it's on those cases that the department would not have to produce the record. You don't want to tie up the process of producing the record and slow down the court process, where in every single one there's going to be a delay for some reason if the department files an objection to something other than subject matter jurisdiction. The real issue is here. You don't want the department clearly producing documentation on cases that is less than 180 days. So that, to me, the burden of raising the objection should be on the department. It's literally, they'll look at the form. Is this 180 days or not? Oh, it's not. We object. You don't have to produce the record. You state because the thing is less than 180 days, the interrupt, and that's the end of it. This kind of does it a little bit backwards, putting the burden on the inmate who is unrepresented at that point to make that determination.
All right. Seems like we're getting somewhere.
I think, if I might just weigh in on that, I think the Defender General is correct, and I think we're all aiming towards the same goal, and it's a matter of how do we get there. Currently, though, there's no mechanism to do what we're all talking about. And so I think what Ben did here in the language is try to create that mechanism. And I think it actually, as it's written, creates some parity. Both the appellant who's saying, I do meet the criteria, my case should be heard, and the department have a burden as it's currently written. The appellant has the burden to say, yes, my interrupt is for longer than 180 days. And the department can say then, no, it isn't. I think it's disingenuous a little bit to say that the department is going to file an objection on every one of these. Really, we're just trying to eliminate the cases that don't meet the basic criteria under the statute. And so on all those other cases, we're happy to produce the record. What we don't want to do is waste our time producing records for cases that we know are just flatly out of the orbit of the statute itself.
I think it's written, it says the department shall file any objections to the notice of appeal. And I understand it's in the context of this paragraph, but if the objection really here is to subject matter jurisdiction, because I'm sure the department objects to many of these appeals on grounds other than subject matter jurisdiction. So I would just want to clarify if you want to keep this same structure that we can let the inmates create their checkbox, and so be it. But the issue is subject matter jurisdiction.
So can you go over the changes right now?
Can I interrupt for 1 second? I just got a note saying that the live stream is not working. From Martha Weaver. It says we're live, so I have no idea, but I think we need to.
Well, this is a final day before trial. I can't, we're listening to the witnesses are hearing us. I don't want
I
know it's,
committees all here.
it's a policy of, it's not, it's a, I think it's bad policy, but
I'm thinking Preston is outside the door listening on his laptop if we want to check and see if he's getting it.
oh,
yeah, I just went on the.
Adam.
Not there now? Oh.
All right, let's,
He said he was going to do
I
that.
just sent an e-help ticket in.
what do we do? All right, what are we supposed to do? End the meeting? We are.
that's what they're supposed to do, but I think it's a bad policy.
I think we should go forward because we're up against the deadline.
Yeah,
I mean, I could quickly make the change that's being suggested, if that's what this committee wants.
Why don't we take a
That,
break?
go back
But
on.
we're gonna have to break at 10, but why don't you go do draft 5.1? Come back and hopefully we'll be live again. You all can take your screen share down so we can all see each other and say hi, but the meeting is postponed until we get our technical.
That's just
if you guys can mute yourself this way, I can keep the live stream going so they can check and see what the issue is. And I'm gonna actually mute us right here.
I'd hate to, Senator Sears?